trying to remember what we. Whoop.
Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to another installment of our Star Wars Heir to the Empire book study. Tonight is chapters 11 through 15. And welcome to everybody who joined us carrying over from the Fan Man tonight over on the Fan Man's channel. That was a lot of fun. We had to duck out really quickly. Sorry if I was a minute or two late here, but just had to freshen up really quickly and, grab a new Diet Dr. Pepper, all that, grab my book, grab my notes, make sure all was well. And here we are. So welcome to my TA, trusty TA. With me as always is Big Al. Say hi, Al.
Hi, Al.
And welcome to the chat. Who's here, hanging out with us? Appreciate it, everyone. Let's see, got our channel members here: Aged Boomer, Matchstick carryover yet? Troy Pacelli, and the Net Pacelli, of course. Welcome, folks. And I was gonna see if you remember the Star Wars theme. Green Lion Girl, Janice Zeal, Sound Engraver, welcome. Chris P, Sarah Torin Clegane, Casey Scott. Thanks for being flexible this week to everybody for coming and joining us on a Friday night rather than Thursday night, which we had to reschedule because of my nieces and everything. I was sitting there babysitting my nieces last night, and my youngest is how old's Casey? Maybe 4 or 5, something like that. And she's watching her tablet, of course, And all of a sudden, she's watching some music video, and I'm listening to it, and all of a sudden, I hear, yeah, and this pissed me off, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to let that go. I don't want to be like that uncle or anything. And then all of a sudden, like, they kicked her ass, and blah, blah, blah. And the song just keeps rolling with it. I'm like, maybe switch to another song. It's probably not something your mom would want you. And she's no, it's not appropriate. It's not. I said, I know it's not appropriate. No, it's not appropriate. I know you don't know what you're saying. It isn't appropriate. Please change the song. But who the hell cares what Uncle Michael has to say? No one cares about that. So they do what they want. I'm just there earning points with the sis. So anyway, fun stories from Adventures in Babysitting. But we're back here and we're ready to talk about Star Wars. How's your day, Al?
Oh, fine.
Good. Stephen Cruz, welcome. Melissa Harris, more people popping in. Stephen Cruz. Oh boy. Okay. So.
Oh, did I miss something?
His chat. He's always making it weird.
Wow. Part of the charm.
So I'm going to try to kind of nip along a bit smartly tonight. I don't want to skip anything either, but we do have a good amount of chapters to go through. Plus, I can't dawdle too long here. But I do think at this point in the book, we're at a place where the pace is necessarily quickening a bit. More and more action. We're moving on towards, just in the sake of this novel, we've had our introduction. We've had our initial statements of the problem and complications, and now we need to see these things kind of play out as we go into more complications and pacing towards our ultimate climax of this specific book, which is itself to build up the further story in the trilogy. So let's see. When we last left our intrepid heroes, they were Han and Leia were deciding that they were going to go meet Lando, that he was the one that perhaps could help them. So we talked about what a great way that was to introduce Lando, and the little way of it's not fan service. It is, you are pleasing the fans because the fans want these characters, but it's not gratuitous, and it's certainly not to make up for failings elsewhere or whatever. We were pointing out just how well it's done, that they waited until the right point and then they bring him in and stuff, so forth. So chapter 11, we're shifting perspective again. We are jumping back to Luke and R2-D2, who of course we're going to check out Dagobah. And what did you make of their adventures there, Al?
Rather bittersweet for Luke there, and also a bit of trepidation when it came to the tree.
Yeah,
that he was going. That once again figures into our story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting picture. He goes back and he found out that the one of the Dark Jedis had fled to Dagobah. Leia tells him, and Leia doesn't know that Dagobah was the home where he he was training with Yoda or anything at this point.
Yeah, I found that kind of odd that in the last 5 years that Dagobah would never have come up.
Well, my understanding of the next chapter is that it's not that it didn't come up; it's just that he didn't want to reveal anything yet, because not knowing as much as he does about what do great Jedi masters leave behind, once they enter into the Force, was anything be there that could be of use? I mean, it kind of plays into the theme of this book, because or one of the themes anyway, because as we started out, we had Luke wondering about Coruscant there, and they had him try to see if he felt any lingering evil, malevolent forces or whatever, since it had been the Empire's capital before they took it over and made it the New Republics again. So you got that theme there, and then he often talked about his experience in the cave at Dagobah, in Empire Strikes Back, when he faces Vader and then sees himself as Vader, and it's that wonderful moment of the hero's journey, entering the cave and all of that. And we've got but quite literally, he's wondering in this book, was there something there that could have been emitting some sort of dark Jedi force? And that's what he's here to kind of further investigate, now that he knows, or he's had confirmation that there has been a dark Jedi there at one point in the past. So, but you're right, it is kind of bittersweet when he goes there and he goes back to check Yoda's home and he realizes, oh, this isn't the desert. This is the swamp where things still sink in, and when things aren't preserved, they they dilapidate and decay and whatnot. On the one hand, it's
the swamp is reclaiming its its property.
Yeah. On the one hand, you have the decay of Yoda's home there, but on the other hand, he likens it to growing up on the desert at Tatooine, where he is there, and how an old building could just stay preserved forever, except that that's a very arid, dead landscape. Whereas this one that might reclaim a structure is a very much alive. It's a swamp. It's growing. It's so it's not just, so on the one hand you can think of it as decay. On the other hand, you can think of it, no, this is a living place growing up over it and reclaiming. So it's an interesting kind of idea. You could probably push on that a little bit more with the Force and maybe get a school paper out of it should you ever have the need.
Can I bring up one sentence here?
Yeah, please do.
I swear to God, when I read it, I laughed. I was like, I've got to bring this up because it just conjures so many weird things. He's remembering his time on Dagobah. It's like that slow twitch of Yoda's ears, the strange but tasty stew he often made, the way that wispy hair of his had tickles Luke's ears whenever he rode Luke's back during training. I swear to God, I literally had to stop my audio.
Don't read anything into it, Al.
I know. I mean, I know, but it's just like, man, he could have. Man, come on! There could have been a better way of saying stuff.
Well, I mean, you can imagine it would have happened, but yeah, okay.
The way his wispy ears tickled, I was like,
only Al.
I just had to bring that up because that was just too funny.
So they don't find anything of use, and Luke's hoping maybe they'd find something or whatever. But all of a sudden, R2 does pick up some sort of signal, an electronic signal of some kind, some sort of a signal being put forth. And R2 traces it to the cave, the very cave in which Luke had faced his Force vision. So Luke goes back in, and Luke's obviously a little bit nervous about going back in. I mean, this was, a big trial for him in his training, but, he sucks it up, realizes he's a Jedi, he's going to do this. And I think it's really fascinating and interesting. Those of us who've read the story and know the story, we kind of know what the Force is showing him here, but he, for those who just read the book the first time, they don't, and you're not supposed to at this point. So instead of seeing, the first time he saw Vader and had that conflict with Vader, that was looking toward the future. That was a conflict he was really going to have, both literally with Vader, but also literally with himself and the darkness within himself. He had to have that grappling, battle. But this time the Force shows him something that's already happened. It shows him back on the what's Yoda's vehicle called again? I mean, Jabba's vehicle. The sail barge. Sail barge, that says, yeah. When he's saving, his friends and everything, and they push him off the sail bars, but he jumps up, and R2 has had his lightsaber hidden the whole time and shoots it forward. So he relives this moment, except this time it doesn't go as planned. somehow the lightsaber stops in the air and it's recalled back to this woman that's over here, and this tall, slender woman who catches the lightsaber and laughs at him. So I want to try and just approach the text as we receive it as we're here. So I'm not going to go through and say, what's going on here and what it is and who this is and everything like that. People probably know already or whatever. If they do, that's fine. But there is something to this. This is probably the longest I'll spend on any of these chapters. Bear with me here, because I think there's the idea of this cave was very central to what Lucas was doing with the hero's journey with Luke in the original trilogy. And Zahn obviously knew that. And I see the cave. It wouldn't be appropriate to just use the cave for anything less important if you're going to bring it back and if you're going to have Luke re-enter it. And I think what we see here is kind of a Freudian development going on here, because and people always get the wrong ideas or kind of do their little middle school smirks when you say Freudian. It never means what the people think it means. In terms of literary theory and whatnot, Freudian is very metaphorical. So you're never really talking about somebody who truly just loves their penis or, wants to marry their mother or anything like that. It's all metaphorical. So, if you've got a phallic symbol, then it's there to stand in for ideas of masculinity or ideas of strength or something like that. It's more usually what the case is. So that lightsaber is, let's say it's the phallic symbol in this. And this is a time in which he placed his faith in that lightsaber. That was what was going to save him. That whole plan was contingent on him receiving his lightsaber at that moment so that he could fight back, so that he could be a hero, so that he could save his friends. And we see in this scenario that it didn't play out. And a woman, of all things, of all beings, takes that phallic symbol, takes that lightsaber from him, obstructs him from grabbing that, from being able to wield that, and is laughing at him, is mocking him. And, in reply for that, this is we're going to put a pin in this. We're going to see Luke's psychological development and where his character development's going in this story, both in this single book and in the entire trilogy as we go through, because he's going to reveal a little bit more. Right now, what we know of Luke is he's worried about being a good teacher and fulfilling his destiny as the last Jedi, doing right by all the Jedi masters who came before him, with not knowing how to teach, with having sort of an incomplete knowledge of how to go about being necessarily a master. He certainly finished his Jedi training and all of that, but so that this is where we've been mostly dealing with him now in terms of his psychological struggle. But we've got some real foundational stuff happening here. So I just kind of wanted to call it out so we can watch it as we build on it. Does that make sense? Or am I being too obscure?
Let's roll with it.
All right. All right. Well, that's really all we can roll with it right now without giving spoilers and developing farther into the story, but we'll just stick with that. And he's wondering, he doesn't know what this is about. That's not the way it went. What's going on, So he eventually does get called to the little device. It's this little unimpressive thing dug into the mud. He shows R2. R2 says he's seen something like that when he was at Lando's Cloud City. So they decide themselves to go visit Lando at what's the planet called that they're at? The mining facility. Nkllon. Yeah. There you go. So now we have Han, Chewie, Leia, C-3PO independently going to visit Lando, and we have Luke and R2 as well. So a good way to collect our heroes together. So you don't want to have to keep bouncing back and forth too many times to their separate journeys, because that can make the overall story seem a little disparate. You want to have them develop, especially when you've got so many characters. You do want to give them their own solo scenes and adventures and whatever to develop, but you also want to make sure you're tying them together on a regular basis. So here we have that. They're going to gather at Nkllon. Now, Nkllon's a really cool setup. What did you think of this first time encountering it, Al? The whole idea of the planet and how to go there.
Interesting with a planet where you have to basically stay within the basically. I picture like the eclipse. Of the moon. You basically have to stay within the shadow in order to survive, because the rest of it's too, I guess, radioactive, toxic, hot,
too close to the sun.
Yeah, it's just it's like on Mercury. You need to stay under the shade.
Yeah. Yeah, so and I like the way they can only approach, but so much on their own. Then they have to get this big like satellite barge, to be
Yeah.
tugged there to protect them from the sun on their approach in.
Yeah, because I know it's not there yet, but like just what they said it did to the Star Destroyer, the adjudicator.
Yeah.
I forget what something like that.
Go ahead.
Just such a short time being that close to it was able to do that much damage. I mean that is. I kept thinking, it's like, man, this would have been interesting to see, on a big screen, see that setup, see how they were able to portray that in special effects.
Oh yeah, that would have been cool. I didn't think about that. Actually, seeing it visually portrayed, that would have been something. Yeah,
yeah, the little crawling city thing, and
I'd like to point out here too the similarities we see between them going to Lando in their time of trouble here and the first time we ever saw them approach Lando in The Empire Strikes Back. There's similarities built in. Lando's fixed there. He's got his own sort of operation, very intricate, maybe shady, maybe not, or whatever. And there's a little bit of a will we or won't we receive the kind of help we're wanting here? Did you see the similarities there too, Al?
Oh yeah, it read Bespin all over again. But
yeah.
But I think I think they're leading in there. I don't think they have an issue with Lando.
No.
Because when they went to Bespin, it was all about how will they be received by Lando, because even Han wasn't. When to go approach him was like, keep an eye out, Chewie, because he knew he could easily have pulled a gun on him.
Yeah, and their possible beef with each other was depicted by Zahn in the Scoundrels book as well, which was great. But there are similarities here, and it even has the characters. No, Leia said isn't just remembering the past. Because Han's like arguing with the guy, who won't let him in. Say, look, just tell Lando this. We're here to see him, everything like that. And then as they're getting closer, we see some more elements of that. But the reason I bring that up is because this is usually a shortcoming of a lot of sequels. Think about really awful sequels out there. I mean, I don't know why this comes to mind, but think of Werewolf 2 or Teen Wolf 2. Remember the Jason Bateman sequel to Teen Wolf? Whenever you have a horrible sequel, it's usually because it tries to follow the exact same beats as the first one did, right? But it doesn't. It never reaches the magic that the first film did, because you're just trying to be a copy and you're not coming about anything organically, right? So like, here's the part where he gets to do a song now, here's the part where, he has a bully. Here's, that kind of thing. But there's a difference between just mimicking or aping the beats of the first film and paying homage to and situating your story in the same thread. So it's a good thing to bring these similarities about, as Zahn did here, because as you said, Al, this is a different case in which they're not worried about Lando being angry with them or anything. Lando's a solid, ally here, but there's still some little similarities. And I think what that cues the reader to here, for example, is it tells you, yes, these characters have been through a lot together, and Han, Leia, Lando, they've all come a long, long way since we last saw them in this sort of same situation with The Empire Strikes Back. But they're also the same characters too. So there's some. Let me see. I've got it. When they finally do get through everything, we'll back up a little bit. I'm not jumping ahead, staying here. But when they finally are all talking there in Lando's base, and Luke says, "What if there was a bounty on us?" And Lando says, "There's no bounty on you." And Luke's like, "Well, how do you know there was no bounties?" Lando's like, "Because I would have heard of it." He said, "Just I'm respectable. Doesn't mean I'm out of touch." And then just the idea that, yes, he is a good guy. He is quote unquote respectable, but he's not suddenly clueless just because, he's a businessman.
He's still got his toe in the, the bad end of things.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And no, Daniel Heron, Lando is not pansexual in this book. That garbage is brought up by what's his name, Kasdan. Or was it? Yeah, I guess it originated from Kasdan before it was the actor said anything about it. But anyway, So backing up before that, what they do, they're riding in underneath the escort there, and then they realize that somebody else is being escorted, and it's just maybe the Empire, and ends up being Luke's X-wing, which you kind of think it might be, in your first read through, because you do know that Luke was on his way there too. But at the same time, Thrawn's proved pretty wily, so you never know. And it's interesting too. I love that. I love that even once they see Luke in the X-wing, Han and Leia have just escaped from a kidnapping attempt in which the Nogri brought in a fake Millennium Falcon. So is that really Luke? Is that really his X-wing, or is it a fake X-wing? They don't know, and they're talking to him over the comms, and they can't really use names or anything, so they can't say too much because somebody might be listening in, but they're trying to figure out. And I love that Han's, even as he's talking to him, he's got the lasers trained on him there. And it's just such a perfect way. Leia's like, well, I have an idea. And, she's talking to Luke, and then she's like, well, there's somebody here who wants to say hello, and it's 3PO who wants to talk to R2. And, of course, once those two get to bickering, there's no faking that. There's no way anybody could have done that. And you have that wonderful moment, too. We've been talking about how Zahn does a great job of balancing power and competence and agency between Leia and Han, this married couple who are both capable heroes in their own ways, and how modern writers just couldn't handle that balance at all. No, they would just either make the man a carpet for the woman to walk on, or you'd have other writers go the other way, but he does this well. So R2 and 3PO are bickering. Smiling tightly to himself, Han keyed off his control board and dropped the lasers back into the standby status. He'd known a lot of men back in his smuggling days who wouldn't have wanted a wife who could sometimes think faster than they could. Speaking for himself, Han had long ago decided he wouldn't have it any other way. Now, see, that's fine. You can do that. You can have a wonderful line like that when you haven't made her a Mary Sue the first half of the book, And it's just, I appreciate the good writing. I appreciate when writers can write a man and a woman both independently well and in a relationship extremely well. One's not a two-dimensional slave of the other. They're both perfectly well-rounded. Gasp! Could they be equal but different? No. Difference. No. We can't have that. But anyway, I just like to call out good writing like that because it's so rare in today's stuff. I also think it's funny too when they're talking about something's clearly wrong with Luke. Obviously, something's a little bit more wrong with him now after having discovered this, stuff from being at Dagobah and everything. And Han and Leia are talking about it. And Han, this guy, he was like, it's okay. He'll get over it. No, this is something different. Leia shook her head. Something more. I don't know. More urgent somehow. She turned back to face him. Winter thought that maybe he'd be willing to talk to you about it. I love this. This is such a man and a woman thing, right? It's like put the women together are talking about it and like, what's wrong with the man? What's wrong with it? Maybe he'll be willing to talk to another man. Han's like, he hasn't yet. Look, don't worry. When he's ready to talk, he'll talk. It's like if he wants to talk about his feelings, he'll talk about his feelings. Okay, we guys don't go around prodding and conspirating comes up. What's the word? Being conspirators about it behind our backs and everything. I just think that was a funny moment. Where do I want to go next? So we're in. Okay, then they do see the Empire does show up. They think it's there to attack them. Of course, it wasn't. It was to steal the mole miners. We still don't know at this point in the read-through. You're not supposed to know what Thrawn necessarily wants these mole miners for, but you do have this moment of coincidence in which Sabaoth was able to contact Luke. Sabaoth sensed Luke was there, so we have that contact. He was wanting to call out to him in the Force and say, come meet me. So now we've got that little that line is baited, and Luke is taking the bait there.
Wow, we went right into chapter 13. Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, did you want to say anything before? I'm trying to skip.
No, I was just trying to keep up. But like I said, it was just it's a long trip for to get to Nkllon. With the 10 hours under the escort, the shield ship, whatever it's called.
Yeah. Now you got me going back to make sure I didn't skip anything. I know I wanted to talk about when they're in the conference room and Lando talks about how just because I'm respectable doesn't mean I'm not in the know anymore.
Yeah, no, that's not it. Because they deal with us. They have to deal with the Star Destroyer first.
Yeah. They deal with the Star Destroyer first. Yeah. So let me make sure Luke loses time. And I did like too. That's right. Before Sabaoth, I knew I was missing something. Before Sabaoth speaks to Luke, they've got this plan that they're going to kind of be the first line of attack, or defense anyway. And Luke is going to try to reach out with the Force and try to muddle the minds of the enemies there coming after him. And this is the first time he's done anything like this, except for the
Gamorrean guards.
Yeah, the Gamorrean guards. So it said it was a strange sensation, strange and more than a little unpleasant. To touch another mind with the intent of communication was one thing. To touch that same mind with the intent of deliberately distorting its perception was something else entirely. He'd had a similar feeling at Jabba's with those Gamorreans, but he had to put it down to nervousness about his mission to rescue Han. Now he realized that there was more to it than that. Perhaps this sort of action, even done purely in self-defense, was dangerously close to the edge of the dark areas where Jedi were forbidden to go. So it's an interesting idea here. So we've been calling out themes as we go along, themes that will be somewhat fully developed in this book, but then also themes that are laid to develop themselves more fully throughout the trilogy. And we talked, for one thing, we've seen the idea about the calm, cool, and calculated, the tactician versus the passionate Force user, the passionate, raw power, of like the Dark Jedis versus somebody like Thrawn, are the way Luke and Han and them approach problems versus, how somebody like a Dark Jedi might have. We also see this, the theme we've already called out about the sense of, is there a lingering negativity and sort of a presence? Is there sort of a lingering effect once a great evil has been around? And Luke was talking about that with Coruscant, and now we're talking about that with Dagobah. We're going to further develop that here in the next chapter and so forth. So these, anytime you see a repetition of certain ideas, you want to take note of them. Obviously, a theme is being built here, and you make note. And as you're going along, you might be able to tie a couple of them together into one overall greater theme. So that's basically what we're doing here. But we're also picking up a little bit of repetition here, the idea that touching another's mind negatively has some sort of effects. Because remember, that's what was the ultimate downfall, Thrawn said, of the Empire, because the Emperor was doing his battle meditation too much to where the fleet couldn't function without him any longer. And, that was a problem. We've got Luke himself, the idea of touching the Gamorrean guards' minds, that was troubling to him. Now the idea of touching these, fighters' minds is troubling to him. And then you've got, even in that very battle, Sabaoth reaching out and messing in his mind a bit. And we're going to see more between Sabaoth and Luke and this idea of the mental play and what are the negative effects of the Jedi mind tricks for, even deeper than that. But so that's just another theme being built. Just want to kind of take note of them as we go.
Plus you also see the fact that Luke is still very unsure of how the Force works as the relation between the dark and the light, because this is another time, like I said, like what he's talking here about. I don't know if you're asked, like, he realized there was more to it than that. Perhaps this sort of action, when you were talking about that, he's not sure if he should be doing it. But it's something he feels he needs to do. So it's almost like he's not sure how far to push himself, or into what areas he's allowed to go or is able to go before he does start to endanger his ability or his own sense of good and bad.
Yeah. Back to the drawing board says Zahn is very interested in the means themselves being good or evil. It's a part of several of his books, but he explores it mostly in his Star Wars work. Yeah, I haven't read his non-Star Wars work, but it definitely is a big part of his Star Wars work. I'll have to check into his other books as well. Were you done there, Al?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I thought it was funny. After this scene with them on Nkllon there, we jumped to Thrawn's ship there, the Chimera, and Sabaoth is, revealing that he touched, he found Luke there, and there's a little bit of a power struggle again between Thrawn and Sabaoth. So, Thrawn felt he should have been notified of that. Thrawn leaves, and Captain Pelion, Thrawn's Watson, they're having this discussion. Pelion got to it then. So we wait along. So Thrawn wants to go, supposedly, they know that Luke's going to go back to Jomark now, which is the planet that they put out the rumor that Sabaoth is where he is. So they're delaying Sabaoth from getting there, saying, "No, it'll take Luke a while. We still need you to do X, Y, and Z for us." And now Thrawn reveals to Pelion that his real plan is to go and try to intercept Luke and maybe kill him outright, maybe deliver him to Sabaoth. He doesn't quite know yet. And Pelion says, so we wait along Scholar's protected route to Jomark and ambush him. Precisely, Thrawn said, at which point we decide whether to capture him for Sabaoth, his eyes hardened, or simply kill him. Pelion stared at him, feeling his jaw drop. You promised Sabaoth he could have him. I'm reconsidering the deal, Thrawn told him coolly. Tell me that doesn't give you a resonance of another great Star Wars line.
Pray or alter it.
Exactly. I love it. I've seen this done a lot in the EU where they just throw out little things like sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's not so subtle. Like in almost every episode of the Clone Wars, somebody says I have a bad feeling about this.
Mm-hmm.
But I love it when I see little echoes like that and Easter eggs and everything. It's kind of fun. Then you have Pelion here again bring up an idea that Thrawn takes to, you bring up a good idea. We're going to do that instead of my thing. Again, just seeing that detached from his ego. He's there. He's all Apollonian. He's all logic and tacticians. When Pelion says, what does he say? Interesting. Where is it? He had a flash of inspiration, Pelion, particularly since his death might induce Sabaoth to leave Jomark and return to Wayland. Yeah, so this is Zahn's way of telling us that they have some secret goings on at Wayland. And Wayland was the planet that they found Sabaoth on. That was also the storehouse of the Emperor's gear there. So all of the equipment, some of the equipment they found there to enact this secret plan that Thrawn has. So they've got something going on there. They're doing something there now that Sabaoth is away from there. They don't want him returning. So it tells us that, the reader, but then it also gives Pelion a chance to bring that up and Thrawn to say, very well, Captain, I accede to your suggestion. It's time to be going, So just again, that Thrawn is so not Vader,
Mm-hmm.
All right, gonna move into chapter 14, unless you have anything else you want to bring up for those.
No, nothing specific. I just really like the relationship between Thrawn and Pelion.
Yeah.
It's a great. I mean, I remember we said this early on. I find myself not hating them. Mm-hmm. They're just like a couple. They're a couple of guys who are part of the army doing what they feel they need to do. There's no sense of evil. Mm-hmm. There's just sense,
especially for Pelion.
Yeah, especially Pelion's just he's just an old man trying to make it to retirement. But Thrawn, he has an agenda which we don't like you just said, we don't fully know it.
Well, he's willing to flat out kill. For me that would qualify him as evil, but I get what you're saying.
I mean, but even Luke had to kill. I mean, it's just like I said,
cold-blooded
from a certain point of view. If you want to bring back an old line,
he also talks in these chapters about destroying an entire planet. I mean,
but I'm saying, it's relative.
Yeah,
he doesn't seem to be evil for evil's sake. He seems like that there's a method to the madness. There's a reason why he's doing it. I don't know.
I think
it's hard to kind of get to what I'm saying.
Well, let me see if I can try, and you tell me if I'm wrong. Don't let me put words in your mouth. But there is such a very human aspect to the relationship there, specifically with Pelion, because Pelion truly does believe he's a man of the military. Like that's all he's known as the Empire, so this, that. So he actually does believe that. Thrawn is so detached. Like Thrawn has, especially as you get to know him later and stuff like that, he does believe the Empire would be best, but it's, he's very cold and calculating. There's not a lot of heart to Thrawn. So it's easier for me to see him as a straight up villain, even though I do, like you, really appreciate their interplay. It's nice when you have a villain who's fun to spend time with, yet you don't make him sympathetic. That's a hard balance to strike, but I think Zahn does it. Or do you disagree?
Well, yeah, I mean, but yeah, like I say, he is cold and calculating, but there's I don't know. It's like it's almost like I could. He's more relatable. than someone like Vader.
Sure.
Or Tark, or even Tark,
comparatively speaking,
comparatively,
he's not just the angry, boiling over.
Right. That's
wrathful,
kind of what I was like. Yeah, he's more level-headed. That's pretty much that's kind of what I'm trying to say. It's just
that makes sense. I see what you mean.
He's not the kind of story needs an evil guy. Well, get that stereotypical, I'll destroy them all with a crush on my head. He's not that. He's like, okay, well, I need this done. If I have to destroy a planet, I'll do it if I have to.
Stephen Cruise's Big Al's letting out his dark side.
You don't want me to let out my dark side.
Entering into 14, I did have a couple other places marked too, which again just shows how even though these characters have grown and they've developed, past what they were, they're still the same characters, because you've got little things like when Lando finds out that 50 one of his best reconditioned mole miners were stolen. He dropped down to his chair, but was on his feet again, almost immediately, stalking around the room, his black cloak billowing behind him like his tame Stormcloud. Leia opened her mouth to offer commiseration, felt Han squeeze her hand warningly. Obviously, Han had seen Lando in this state before. Swallowing back the words, she watched as he continued his caged animal pacing. So even though he's been a general of the Republic, he's Mr. Respectable Businessman, he's still that smuggler inside of him, the dangerous man,
Someone stole something from him, too. I'd be ticked off myself. Well, I do love that line, the black cloak billowing behind him like a tamed Stormcloud.
Yeah, that's a great, like a tamed Stormcloud. Mm-hmm. It's tame, yet it's a Stormcloud nonetheless. That's a good picture of him. It's
rustling, but he has control of it.
Exactly. Yeah. Good imagery there, tying into what you're trying to say about the character themselves. That's good, because you can just use any old imagery, but if you got to make it double duty, pull double duty, double task, what's going on. And then once he remembers his manners, I love that. It's been kicking around for years, he shrugged, pulling her gently, Leia, to her feet and guiding her over to the window, his hand resting against the small of her back. Ever since she and Han had gotten married, Leia had noticed a resurgence of this kind of courtly behavior toward her from Lando. And because we saw him that on in Empire Strikes Back, behavior that harkened back to their first meeting at Cloud City. She puzzled over that for a while until she noticed that the attention seemed to annoy Han. So that's the reason he's doing it. It's like a power, like, let me escort your woman over here, Han. So even these two buddies, even though they're all cool, they're friends, they still have this little sort of picking at each other kind of thing going on.
They could not have found a better person to play that character than Billy D. Williams.
It's very true.
He is so smooth.
Oh yeah.
He's getting that put up, has like kissing that hand. Oh yeah, get a little.
You got to do your Billy D. Williams more often. That's great.
I'll do what I can, my friend. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's bordering just a touch on ASMR, and it's making me uncomfortable. Okay, moving on before Al reloads.
Let's continue, my friend.
All right, so Lando sees the device that Luke brought. It's a beck and call, basically an old pre-Clone Wars vintage remote control for a starship. I love and you guys in the chat, those of you who are far more schooled and experienced and farther along in the EU than I am, maybe you can answer this for me. We know, and we've established in this book study, that when this book came out in 1989, I think it was, there had not been any other adventures available that dealt with these characters post Return of the Jedi. Right. And the EU is really kind of getting underway. I mean, there have been this or that book or this and that thing out. But correct me if I'm wrong, chap, but to my knowledge, people still really didn't have much of an idea about what the Clone Wars was or what exactly went on in the Clone Wars than we did just from what we received from the original trilogy. Or am I wrong? Had there been stories set in the Clone Wars, had it been more developed at this point when this book came out? The reason I ask, you guys can let me know while I'm talking here, is because it's a good thing. That's what's so cool. Or did you have an answer to that, Al, before I go on?
No, I was just yawning. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay. I just want to make sure I'm not talking over you. in the Star Wars: A New Hope, when Obi-Wan mentions the Clone Wars, these droids are Luke. I forget which one mentions, "Hey, oh, they must have fought in the Clone Wars." And no, your father fought in the Clone Wars. That kind of thing. You can just sort of willy-nilly mention things to flesh out your universe. And if you haven't really thought through your universe and haven't invested the time in the world building, that might not even reach the page of your story. You need to spend that time nonetheless so that you can have a cohesive and a real world and a mythos built up. But that makes it seem all the richer for your reader, so dropping the ideas like about the Clone Wars was really cool. And we do it again here. So that's why I was wondering if we knew any more about the Clone Wars, or if Zahn is just sort of, again, rooting this trilogy of his into the same kind of thing. Back to the drawing board says the Clone Wars are blank at this point. Yeah, that's okay. That's what I thought. Good. So in fact, Zahn wrote some parts of Heir to suggest that the clones fought against the Jedi. Okay. All right. So yeah, they're still developing it and figuring it out. Good. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate that. Yeah. Troy says nothing specified about the Clone Wars before the prequels. Some allusions, but no details. Okay, good. That's kind of what in my journey on the EU, I'm really qualified to firmly state that or anything yet. So thank you. Matchstick says there was a comic, but it was completely different to the actual Clone Wars, and it was rendered non-canon. Oh, cool. I didn't know that. Very interesting. Yeah, you guys are like scholars on this stuff. I look forward to gaining such experience and knowledge as you have, chat. Okay, yes. And now here we also have in their talks, because they came to Londo. Han and Leia came to Londo to find a slicer, a hacker, so their word for hacking, basically slicing into the channels and stuff like that, who could keep Leia in communication with the Republic, but not let anybody know where she was. And Han's, there's nothing he can do. He's not going to be able to do that. And they ask, well, do you know, you still have any contacts in any smuggler groups? Do you know any? He says, that I trust, Lando pondered. Not really. The only one who might even come close is a smuggler chief named Karrde. Everyone I've talked to says he's extremely honest in his trade dealings. So again, we have this name drop, this mysterious character, Karrde. We did have one little scene, two scenes actually. We met Karrde at his base towards the beginning of the story. We met Mara Jade coming in there. We saw the interplay between the two of them, and you got the idea that Karrde, even though he's a smuggler, even though he's not the most perhaps a moral, upright, honest man according to the law or people in general, he is very square dealing with his people. That kind of thing. He cares about that. So you got this sort of a noble rogue kind of vibe from him almost. At least to a certain degree. You don't know how far it goes at this point. And we had him show up again just as a bystander, watching the big battle that Thrawn did there, proving that what they could do. So this is little name drops like this. It's an incredibly mysterious character. At this point, we're going to have to go ahead and meet him here. After this, like we need to go ahead and of course our chapters for this week end with Han and Lando deciding that yes, they're off to meet or they're off to try and find Karrde now. But it's a good way to set up a character as mysterious. One of the problems when you write a novel or a new storyline in an established franchise like this, especially today, especially like in comics or something like that, everybody wants to have said that they created this new character who's now a part of this mythos or whatever. And that's usually a mistake. You don't want to try and shoehorn your new characters in too quickly or too emphatically or whatever. You want to make sure that you've done the work and you've put in the work and put in the respect and the time and the not homage, but what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. You put in all the due respect and time with the established characters. And if you're going to invite and create that new character, it really does merit being there. And there's a reason for it. And Karrde has been woven so subtly into the thread of this at this point that he's essential. Now it's like nobody else can help them but Karrde, so they've got to go to him. And we're curious enough about him because we've only been given little pieces of it. It's just a really cool example of how to introduce a new character into an established franchise like this. So then we have this wonderful plan they have. And how do you say Chewie's homeworld? Do you say Kashyyyk or Kashyyyk?
Kashyyyk.
I say Kashyyyk too, except in Clone Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, all those games they say Kashyyyk, and it drives me crazy. But I think there's been like a debate in fandom or something. I think most people agree to say Kashyyyk now, though. Anyway, I always say Kashyyyk. So Sorry if you say Kashyyyk out there listening. But this is the plan. The plan is to, which is kind of a cool thing too, because this is long before episode 3, when, everybody's curious about the Wookiee homeland, but unless you saw the holiday special, you've never been there, So, so they're going to go to
those that did want to forget.
exactly. Not everybody. I like.
Well, I know. It's fine.
I know Troy's here. Troy loves it. He says, Sound Engraver says it's good writing when the new character will be somewhat involved with the main characters. Exactly. It doesn't feel tacked on, but feels integral to what's going on and with their storylines.
I was wondering one thing. I think we passed a little bit, but it's just a small thing. But I'm just wondering how it may figure in later. The device that Luke found, the beck and call.
Yeah, so we actually get a little bit of that in the in chapter 15. I'll get there in a second.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, good. Yeah, good to mention. Remind me if I don't cover that. So
okay.
So the plan is for Chewie to take Leia to Kashyyyk, and they're going to do this little switch off and switcheroo. To make people think that Leia's with Han in the Millennium Falcon by making 3PO's voice sound like Leia, which is all kinds of hilarious.
That was freaky.
I know. And poor 3PO, you can just sense his level of stress and neuroticism over it, So they have this great, and it's a really cool plan. It's a fun plan, and then when we spend a little time with Thrawn, and we see Thrawn completely dismantle the plan. And I think it's done so well that on the one hand, you hate to see your hero's plan found out. On the other hand, you kind of have to hand it to Thrawn for figuring it out, because it didn't feel like it was too easy. It felt like we put in the work to show the reader that he is that good of a detective when it comes to this kind of thing, and he leads Pellaeon through his deductions here, and even Pellaeon himself is like, "Wow, yeah, that has to be the case." And when Thrawn's like counting the amount of time they're docked together, the Lady Luck and the Millennium Falcon is like, must have been 3 passengers going from one to the other, and this and that. I thought that was pretty impressive, didn't you? Or
yeah, I was like, damn, he's smart.
Yeah, exactly.
He is that. I'm trying to think of other characters that kind of have that same kind of forethought, like that ability, and just to kind of it's almost a little bit like Viziri from Princess Bride.
Vincini. Oh, okay, yeah.
Vincini. Thank you. I couldn't think of his name.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly, the brains.
But I know that if he goes there, and I'm like putting all the pieces together, and he just
Yeah, exactly. Always thinking ahead.
Yeah.
And Pellaeon, of course, doing his due diligence as our Watson type character, leading us or giving us a way in to be led through this logic was perfect. Falcon is going to solo. So we've got this plan now. They're going to take out, or they're going to try and ambush Luke. So we've done this before. We've left a chapter on a cliffhanger where Thrawn says, "This is my plan to attack, kidnap, or whatever." And we saw the plan, begin to be sprung. And we knew at that point, we said this point in the story's buildup, it can't be successful, right? When it was the Nogri attacking them for the first time on Bim or Bimasari. Did I get that wrong? The Bimasari, the people. What's the name of the planet? Bim. Planet's just called Bim, right?
Bim. I thought Bim.
Bimasari is the name of the planet. The Bims are the people on the planet.
Yeah.
Always get that mixed up. Sorry. Anyway, and we talked about how that could not be successful at that point because we had to have an opportunity to build competence with our lead characters for the sake of this book, even though we've known them before. We know they're very competent and so forth. This is a different deal now. We're mid-book. So just going through as a reader, you'll know that they can't just handily escape without any consequences at the very least. But you also know that, it's too early in the book for them to be completely decimated because we still have to have a major climax to build up to. So just, you kind of gauge things by where you are in the progression of the story and the progression and pacing of the plot and everything. But it's going to be interesting. I remember the first time I was reading it through, I was very much on pins and needles wondering what is going to happen with this ambush, what is going to happen with Thrawn's knowledge that Leia's on Kashyyyk now and stuff like that. So it's going to be really interesting. We're getting into some good stuff here. The other thing that we have is Luke and Leia, when they have a little talk here, I'm backtracking a little bit. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up where these things are. But this is before they actually leave into the ships, and this covers what Al's saying about the beck and call. So they put together a little bit when Luke reveals to Leia that Dagobah was where he had trained with Yoda, and they're wondering why Yoda would have chosen such a out of the world place like that. Plus, why wouldn't the Emperor and Vader have been able to sense that Yoda was around and alive, because they could sense Luke was there. So there has to be some reason. So it's kind of a cool deal that this book is kind of going back in and shoring things up here or there that, may or may not have been still kind of open to interpretation or open to be tied up elsewhere. And the idea is that the original Jerusalem Sabaoth, not the clone, but the original that this Sabaoth was cloned from, landed on that planet, on Dagobah, way back when during the outboard flight fiasco, during the Clone Wars and everything. Leia told Luke that one of the Jedi Masters crash landed there. And so it's a dark Jedi Master. And Yoda must have gone there, was either already there or must have gone there, chased him there or whatever to do battle with him. He defeats him, and it must have been a close battle because the beck and call was already on. So we know that Sabaoth was calling his ship, again, with it being there. But then that having a place there where a dark Jedi fell, it would be like an opposite polarity to Yoda's light side presence. So that's why Yoda was able to hide on Dagobah and not be sensed or not be found out by the Emperor, sensed through the Force or whatever. That's one. And then the beck and call is there and switched on because it was at the moment in the battle where, he was calling his ship to get away. Does that answer your question there, Al, about the beck and call?
No, I knew it. I just was making sure that it was an issue we brought up. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha. Oh, yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do. Yeah, but I like it because it totally makes sense why they never found where Yoda was. He was camouflaged. It was almost like a forced camouflage.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I like the way they describe it, like the polarity sort of canceling each other out too. Right. Sorry, while you were saying that, I was reading Tom Spiegel's, which welcome Tom Spiegel, channel member, said, you think you were driven nuts by the Kashyyyk pronunciation. I listened to the entire Lord of the Rings radio adaptation in which everyone said Legolas and Saruman. It is funny. I think I've told this story before. When you're listening to an audio or a radio adaptation or whatever, and they get a pronunciation wrong, the first two Witcher books, Geralt's minstrel friend is named Dandelion. I know they call him something different in their horrible adaptation on Netflix, but Dandelion. His name is Dandelion. But the guy reading the first two books pronounced it Dundelion. like trying to make it cooler or something, It's like, come on, it's Dandelion. It's clearly Dandelion by looking at it. I remember, too, there was some book I was reading where the character's name was Siobhan. But apparently the person reading it didn't know how you actually spelled the name Siobhan. So she pronounced it Sioban. It was like so embarrassing and so cringy every time she would say it. But yeah, it's funny.
There's a special on penguins that Benedict Cumberbatch does, and he cannot pronounce penguin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was like penguins and penguins. It was like all over the place. It was. They had it on an interview with him once, and he's just like, "Oh, this is so embarrassing. I don't know how to pronounce it." It's just a word he can't pronounce.
I'll have to look that up. That's funny. Yeah. So we have reached the end of our chapters for the night. Is there anything I'm switched over or skipped over that you wanted to make sure we brought up? Or
no, I think we pretty much got the good stuff.
Mm-hmm. So we're left on the cliffhanger. We're left at the end of chapter 15. Thrawn, they're going to try and ambush Luke, and they also know where Leia is, so they're going to send, conceivably they're going to send another team of Nogri after, we guess, but we're going to see what happens with that. So nicely leaving a little cliffhanger. I think for next week, we'll go back to Thursday next week, back to our usual night. Should all work out. But how do you feel about doing the next 5 chapters through chapter 20 for next week?
14.
Much. I'm going through
So 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20?
Yeah. Or do you think we should go less than that?
Okay, well, there's 12. Ooh, that's a pretty
page-wise. Page wise, it's 159 through 221. That's not so much, but if you guys in the chat think that's going to be a bit much, you can let us know too. I want to encourage everybody to stick with us, but I also don't want to go too crazy slow that it's like are you ever going to finish? What do you think?
It's a good chunk. I mean, it's doable, but also remember you're trying to keep these under an hour.
What are we at right now? I just we started at 11 to 10:10. Yeah, we did this in an hour.
We're about an hour.
Yeah, we're about an hour now. So, only person answered is.
I thought you did sound like you did a lightsaber.
It did no, it's snap hiss in the books. It's always snap hiss of a lightsaber.
Snap hiss.
Wouldn't be an issue for me. Nanette says, "All right, cool." Sound Graver says, "I'm way ahead of you, so I'm good with 5 chapters." All right, cool.
Your light sabre.
Light sabre, yeah, that's right. Yeah, make sure you pronounce it wrong. All right, cool. So 5 chapters then. Paladin Demo's good with 5. Kit Spikin says, or Kit Spikin, however you say that. You got, paranoid about pronunciation now. It says 5 is good. All right, so through chapter 20 will be next week, and we'll be back on Thursday night, unless something happens. If something ever does happen, just check my my Twitter. I usually try and announce it during the office streams, give you a heads up too if something weird is going on. Paladin Demo said he doesn't like to go on Tumblr. I think he meant Twitter. Enable my community. Said something about enable my community tab or something. I haven't really looked at that or know what that's about. I'll take a look at that and see. Maybe that's different from the channel members and stuff like that. I'll take a look and see. But it gets to be too much to catch up with when every site out there tries to have all the same functions. And it's like, how many? Like, I'm not gonna update my stories on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Like, no, I'll pick one of them, and that's where you get what you get, whatever. So I'll take a look though and see, make sure everybody's
although on Twitter you can make everything pop up on Facebook and Twitter.
That's true. There's sites out there that'll help you coordinate them all and everything. So
yeah, it's annoying as hell.
Yeah. So, all right. Yeah. Good night, Mr. Harris. I see people already signing off. See you, Matchstick. Yeah, that's all for us tonight. We'll be back tomorrow for the rewatch at 10 p.m. Eastern. And I am going to try and sign on a little bit early. At least myself. Troy and Al will be welcome to in the net. And you're welcome to join us too if you want to. But no pressure if you don't. But are welcome to join us too. But that first little early bit, I'm going to really try and give my general spiel for my approach to the movie and what are some of the things I see and why I don't think it's a contradiction for me to feel the way I do about it, but also an invitation for people who are far more schooled on the Lone Ranger to let me know anything I might not know, stuff like that too. So that's for tomorrow. And yeah, anything else from you, Al? We already did this on Fan Man's channel, but
no, my friend, I think we're doing fine.
Gosh, stop it. All right. So thanks for hanging out with us tonight. And yes, of course we want you to be part of it, Nanette. I just don't want you to feel pressure because I think Troy was saying you may not have seen her. You might not be interested or something. I just want to make sure that you're good. But yes, of course, come along with us. We'd love to have you if you're free to come. So, all right, that's all. And unboxing the package, right? Chili remind me the professor doing a package. Paladin Demo apparently sent me a package. He wants me to do an unboxing or something. I don't know. I'll keep an eye out for it. All right, so thanks for hanging out with us, guys. I'm gonna go do some homework, and until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the hero stories you love. Thanks for watching.
I'm gonna go have a Colt 45.